starts with silence. No tires on asphalt, no engine. Just a black car appearing in the fog as if it had always been there. Welcome to Horror Across Borders. Here fear knows no boundaries. From cursed legends to haunted places, every culture hides a dark side. And tonight we're stepping into Russia, where cars don't just drive, they hunt. Picture a foggy evening in Warsaw, or a quiet, snow-dusted street in Moscow back in the 1960s. This was a time when fear was everywhere, when every shadow held a secret, and the sound of a car engine in the middle of the night could make your blood run cold. Now, what if I told you about a car that was more than just metal and gears? A car that could appear and vanish in a flash, moving without a sound and leaving nothing behind, not even its victims. This wasn't just a car, it was a predator. On the dark streets of the Soviet Union, a silent hunter was stalking people. This is the story of the Black Volga, a paranormal entity in the shape of a car, hunting for anyone unlucky enough to cross its path. And tonight, we're going to find out why you should never get inside. Now, this isn't just some simple ghost story you tell around a campfire. The legend of the Black Volga spread like a virus across Russia, Poland, Ukraine, and other countries. It was a tale whispered from parents to children, a warning about a sinister black sedan that brought nothing but abduction and death. What makes this legend so uniquely terrifying is how it blurs the line between what was real and what was supernatural. It's a story born from the very real terror of living under an oppressive government. But it quickly spiraled into a myth about demonic forces and otherworldly horror. Tonight, we're peeling back the layers of one of the darkest urban legends from the Soviet era. We'll look at the history that gave it life, the paranormal claims that gave it teeth, and the chilling theories about who or what was actually behind the wheel. To understand the ghost, you first have to understand the machine. The legend of the Black Volga is completely tied to the car itself, the Gaz-21 and the later Gaz-24. Made by the Gorky automobile plant, the Volga was a symbol of pure status and power in the Soviet Union. For the average person, just owning a car was a fantasy. Owning a Volga was impossible. These cars were for the elite, high-ranking officials, famous artists, and most ominously, the KGB. From the moment the first one rolled out in 1956, the Volga was a rolling symbol of the state's power. Seeing one on your street caused a mix of awe and pure dread. If a Volga pulled up to your apartment, you knew it wasn't a friendly visit. The sound of its engine alone was enough to cause panic, because it usually meant someone was about to be questioned, or worse, disappear. These cars were tools of the secret police, used to enforce the party's will. The fear was real, because an encounter with a Volga could mean your family would never see you again. It was in this climate of paranoia that the legend was born, sometime in the 1960s and 70s. The stories started as whispers, rumors that turned the car from a tool of the state into something much, much worse. They started with stories of abductions, especially of children. The stories always started with whispers, rumors of a Black Volga cruising slowly through a neighborhood, near a playground or a school. And then, a child would vanish without a trace. These weren't specific, documented cases you'd read in the paper, but that's what made them so terrifying. They could happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time. And it was these rumors that cemented the car's dark reputation. But this went way beyond just fear of the secret police. The stories took on a darker, more sinister tone. People started saying this wasn't a car driven by men. it was something else. The details got more specific and more unsettling. The Volga was always black, perfectly clean, sometimes with white rims or curtains in the windows to hide what was inside. And then, the truly supernatural stuff started to creep in. The car wasn't just driving. It was appearing out of thin air, gliding silently like a ghost. Some people even swore the car had small horns instead of side mirrors. A grotesque, demonic detail. The real-world fear of the KGB was bad enough, but the legend of the Black Volga was twisting into something from beyond this world. It was becoming a story about a cursed object, a vessel for pure evil. As the legend grew, the question of who was driving became the dark heart of the story. The theories got wilder and more terrifying, shifting from government agents to the truly paranormal. So who was driving the Black Volga? The answers the legend gives are pure nightmare fuel. In the most chilling and popular versions of the story, the driver was Satan himself. People who claimed they survived an encounter said they looked in the driver's window and saw a pair of glowing red eyes staring back from the darkness. The car wasn't just a car, it was the devil's personal ride, roaming the earth to collect souls for hell. This version of the story took the Black Volga from a symbol of government oppression to an agent of cosmic evil. It meant the disappearances weren't just kidnappings, they were acts of damnation. Other stories offered up a whole cast of supernatural drivers. Some believed the car was run by a satanic cult, hunting for victims for their rituals. Others whispered about vampires using a modern car to stalk their prey. In some tales, the driver was a priest or even a group of nuns. A blasphemous twist meant to corrupt symbols of faith and turn them into something to fear. The one thing all these versions agreed on was that the driver wasn't human, or at least not anymore. They were just shadows, extensions of the car's evil will. The car itself was said to have powers that broke the laws of physics. It didn't just drive, it would materialize on a lonely road late at night, as if it was summoned from the shadows themselves. They said it could move without making a sound, gliding like a phantom before vanishing just as fast. Its tactics were just as creepy. A common story goes like this. The car pulls up next to someone walking alone. The driver asks for the time. If the person is foolish enough to get close to the car to answer, a door swings open and they're dragged inside, never to be seen again. But you didn't even have to get inside to be a victim. One of the most terrifying parts of the legend was the curse. In some versions, just seeing the Black Volga was a death sentence. The car would stop and his driver would point at you and say, "Tomorrow you will die at this hour." And just like that, you'd be dead within 24 hours, the victim of a random accident or a sudden illness. The car had become a mobile death omen. Its presence alone was enough to mark you for the grave. So, you have a demonic car, maybe driven by the devil himself, that can kill you with a look. But what does it want? Why would a supernatural car be stealing people, especially kids? Good question. And oh boy, are the theories dark. The why is where the legend of the Black Volga gets truly disturbing. If the car is a supernatural monster, its motives have to be just as twisted. The theories that popped up tried to explain the unexplainable, to give a reason for why people were being snatched off the streets. One of the most widespread and horrific theories was that the victims were being harvested for their blood. According to these stories, the people taken were brought to secret labs where their blood was drained. But why? Some said the blood was being used to treat wealthy Westerners or Arab elites who had leukemia, a grim reflection of Soviet-era fears about a corrupt and decadent West. Other versions were even more sinister, claiming the blood was used in satanic rituals or even consumed by powerful people in the government who believed the blood of the young could make them live longer. This theory hits on a primal fear, the innocent being sacrificed to serve the corrupt and powerful. A related theory, and a more modern twist, was organ harvesting. In these versions, the Black Volga was part of a criminal ring that kidnapped people to steal their organs for the black market. While this sounds more like modern true crime, it still has that same chilling idea at its core. Human beings being treated like a commodity, their lives ended for profit. It mixes the supernatural vibe of the old legend with the very real horrors of human trafficking. But the most supernatural theory of all suggests a motive far scarier than money. This theory says the car isn't driven by criminals or cultists, but by demons collecting souls for hell. The abductions aren't for blood or organs, but for a person's eternal soul. The driver, whether it's Satan or some other demon, is just meeting a quota, harvesting souls from an unsuspecting world. In this version, the Black Volga is a soul-collecting machine, and its victims are damned for eternity. Could anyone actually survive an encounter with this thing? The stories say yes, but your chances were slim. The legend offered a few glimmers of hope. One way was to recite a prayer, asking a higher power to protect you. Another, more defiant method was to shout a specific phrase at the car, like, "It is God's time." This act of defiance was supposedly enough to make the car vanish, but tales of survival are incredibly rare. Most stories focus on how unstoppable the Black Volga was, driving home the idea that an encounter was almost always a death sentence. These aren't just spooky stories, they reflect a very deep-seated terror. But where do you draw the line between the fear of the government and the fear of a ghost? The reason the Black Volga legend is so powerful is that it's a perfect mix of real-world fear and supernatural horror. It's a ghost story that could only have come from the political climate of the Soviet Union. The daily reality for millions was life under a government where the secret police could make you disappear. The KGB was a real monster, and the Volga was the car it drove. The legend just took that real fear and cranked it up to 11. The KGB could take your life, but the Black Volga could steal your soul. This blend is what makes it so gripping. It works on the power of what if. What if the KGB wasn't just taking dissidents? What if some of these stories were actually true? It's even possible the authorities let these supernatural rumors spread. A population that's scared of ghosts is a population that's less likely to question the government or break curfew. The legend could have been a form of psychological control, whether it was intentional or not. It blurred the lines so well that people didn't know if they should be more afraid of the government or the devil. The ambiguity is why the story has survived for so long. The legend doesn't give you any clear answers, so every generation can project its own fears onto it. During the Cold War, it was the fear of the state and the occult. Today, the legend has adapted, with the motive shifting to modern anxieties like organ trafficking. The car itself might change in newer stories. Sometimes it's a black BMW or a Mercedes, but the core idea is the same. A mysterious, predatory car and its helpless victims. The Black Volga has left a huge mark on culture, inspiring films, books, and music, especially in Eastern Europe. The legend has become a cultural shorthand for inescapable dread, a story that captures the paranoia of an entire era. It's a chilling reminder of a time when the biggest horror wasn't a ghost or a demon, but the terrifying possibility that the real monsters were the people in charge, and the supernatural was just a shadow they cast. The Black Volga remains one of the most powerful urban legends in history. It's a phantom of the road, a ghost born from an engine of oppression. It's a story that perfectly shows how real-world anxiety can twist into folklore, creating a myth that's somehow even scarier than the reality that created it. Was it a demon hunting for souls on the dark roads of the Eastern Bloc? A clever psychological trick run by the secret police? Or just a story, born from the shared fear of people who had every reason to believe that monsters were real and drove black cars? Russia had the Black Volga. In America, drivers whisper of phantom hitchhikers. In Japan, taxi passengers vanish into thin air. Every culture has its haunted vehicle. So the next time you see a vintage black sedan on a lonely road at night, you have to ask yourself, is it just a classic car? Or has the hunter returned? What do you think? Was the Black Volga a KGB psy-op, a genuine paranormal entity, or something else entirely? Let me know your theories in the comments below. And if your hometown has its own legend about a haunted vehicle, I'd love to hear it, because this is horror across borders, where fear has no boundaries. Be sure to subscribe and join us next week, when we travel to Thailand to uncover one of the country's most heartbreaking ghost stories.